you guys are quite done with all of your time-wasting chit-chat, we can finally get down to business here, as I intended to do 20 minutes ago.
Oh, that's so?
That's what the recording will show. Cast Iron Brains, a podcast that is not celebrating anything today, no matter the party hat that Abe is wearing and the party cigar that Abe is smoking and the party drink that Abe is drinking, that sick bastard. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and party enthusiast co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
I'll bet you are, you sick fuck. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
I'm game recognizing fame is what I am.
Tonight is Monday, December 30th, 2024, the very final Cast Iron Brains of 2024 before we turn things over to 2025. You excited for the big new year, Abe?
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to the games on New Year's Day.
Oh, we'll get to the games a little bit later.
That's the other one.
Oh, yeah. And hanging out with some friends on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
I understand you're going to a fancy, big money ticket New Year's Eve party.
That's right. That this for the people in Atlanta, Guardian Works is the venue, and it's just you just give them money, and then they let you drink and eat shitty food for a few hours. And
you don't know. Might be good.
Are they giving you? Is it like party food, or did you buy like dinner? Like, serve you sit down dinner?
I think it's probably just like finger food at best. I don't think it's going to be any sit down thing.
Yeah. Given the open bar nature of the situation, they should probably just put out a bunch of baguettes or something.
No, they should put out meats.
Yeah, meats and baguettes.
Yeah, they should.
That should be fun. We're gonna sit at home on New Year's Eve as we always do. Watch the football game. Make some frozen food with the kids. How was your Christmas, Abe?
I went to go see the movies.
It's very Jewish.
Yes.
Did you cook yourself a special meal, or is it just another sweet potato kind of day?
Yeah, sweet potato day. Like I said, Christmas is a lot like Columbus Day in my neck of the woods.
We had a great deal of fun on Christmas. The kids got everything they wanted. The kids are getting older, of course, and Calvin, anyway, has started asking for more practical items. Like he asked for a new winter jacket, and he asked for new gloves.
Pants.
Gloves for warmth and gloves for snow, as in like both like the thin profile gloves and then also the bulkier like skiers gloves or what have you.
Yeah. I'm curious. The logistics of it, is the ask through directly to you guys or through?
Depends on the item. So they always ask like one big ticket item of Santa, recognizing that
Santa only brings one thing.
Santa
per
only
kid.
really brings
is that
one
I did not
thing.
know. Okay.
In our
that's how it is here.
Tradition here, Santa provides one big present, and then everything else comes from
also the calendars.
The family. Yes. Also, Santa provides our wall calendars. The kids each have a wall calendar in their room, and we have a family wall calendar in the kitchen. If you need to know the logistics of our calendar situation. But other than that, it's all family provided. So they know to ask Santa for one major item and then some smaller stuff that they know could fit into his stocking, which Santa also stuffs the night of. And then the rest is just us.
Oh, nice.
You might say that perhaps we should be providing our son with a good winter jacket and gloves and pants such that he doesn't have to ask for those things from Santa Claus. And you would have a very good point, and I don't have a good counter-argument to that, except to say that I'm proud of my stoic and practical-minded son for asking for those things for Christmas, because it saves us from having to, buy them otherwise. But anyway, we're going to try to go fast tonight. I don't want to spend all day editing.
We could have done what all the Sunday news shows did and just not done anything.
Not all the Sunday news shows. I turned on Meet the Press on Sunday, and you get the it's time for a special edition of Meet the Press. And a special edition of Meet the Press means either that something horrible has happened in the world, or they've pre-taped everything and they're not doing any real news this week. And the bright side is that it was the latter this time. So they were like, had an interview with Michael Phelps. What? Why would I watch an interview with Michael Phelps during Meet the Press? I'm not trying to watch the fucking Today Show here. This is not CBS This Morning that I signed up to watch when I walked out of my bedroom and get my news of the week. So I skipped it entirely. I'm not. What are we doing here? Get me a backbencher from the NBC News team there, over maybe even dip into MSNBC if necessary. And have them come over and host holiday weekend shows is where you get the next generation of talent.
Get their reps in,
in your panels, and to get your reps in. Right. And instead, it's like, nope, Kristen Welker is so terrified of losing her position because she's so bad at her job. She has a deep insecurity that she cannot step away even for a single Sunday, and so has to fill it with stupid old interviews instead.
If you were Kristen Welker's agent, you would insist that the contract stipulates that there can't be any shining stars taking any opportunities to show how much better that they are, right? So, like, show reruns, have Michael Phelps, have any kind of other thing, but you can't have some weekend person show up and like, oh boy, this person's such a natural that they can answer, they can, work with the politicians, they can, probe and get the right answers. You don't want that on tape. So
deep in Kristen Welker's contract is a clause that says no one of greater intelligence than Willie Geist is permitted to host Meet the Press in my absence. And the execs over there at NBC Universal were like, we're not putting that retard on the air in front. Willie Geist we let him out for the Sunday Today Show, and that's it.
Right.
No further than that.
He does a lot of these goofy celebrity interviews. I've watched his show every once in a while, and that's all he does. Just schmooze it with Hugh.
Doesn't surprise me at all that you've been watching the Willie Geist program on NBC.
I've seen it. I don't want to overstate how much I watch.
I could never cancel YouTube TV. Do you know how much Willie Geist content I have still to catch up on? That's how they get you, that YouTube TV. They jack the prices up by another $10 or $15. Right. But Abe looks at his backlog in his YouTube TV DVR. It's like, unlimited DVR sounds like a great idea until you have 3,000 hours of content you haven't watched.
Most people stick with the increasing cost of YouTube TV because of sports. I do it because of the news magazine shows and Willie Geist.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a long way of saying that the Sunday news shows were in part bogus. I enjoyed the CBS one. CBS always does a good end-of-year Face the Nation, this time hosted by Major Garrett, who's not bad. As also, similarly, he's second tier. He's not nearly as good. Margaret Ben and Maggie has nothing to worry about in terms of Major Garrett taking things over. But it was good. The roundtable that they had, CBS hardly ever does a roundtable. They did a roundtable with journalists, and they had some woman on whose name escapes me at the moment, but she was talking about how the news media is total failure to acknowledge Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline.
One of the things we also do in the year-end correspondence roundtable is dig into what was undercovered or underreported. Jan?
Undercovered, underreported. That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations. It's been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years. And yet he insisted that he could still run for president. We should have much more forcefully questioned whether he was fit for office for another 4 years, which could have led to a primary for the Democrats. It could have changed the scope of the entire election. Yet, still, incredibly, we read in the Washington Post that his advisors are saying that he regrets that he dropped out of the race. That he thinks he could have beaten Trump. And I think that is either delusional or they're gaslighting
President
American
Biden
people.
has said repeatedly he was sick during the debate June 27th in Atlanta, and he's always been fine, and he leaves fine. That is his position, the position of many of his top aides as well, even though there is that reporting.
It's like, whoa, we're getting spicy here at the end of the year.
Yeah, wasn't there like a Wall Street Journal article about that? Like how the people on the inside knew? So maybe she was reacting to that?
Yeah, there was... it wasn't just people on the inside, is what's gross about the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. The American people in 2022 were already it was well established that we did not want Joe Biden to run again for president, including a majority of Democrats as early as 2022 didn't want Joe Biden running again. They're trying to reframe this presidency as some sort of grand success that was undone by his diminishment in the final year. And that's ridiculous, because by August of 2021, this presidency was effectively over. After the Afghanistan withdrawal disaster, it never recovered. And I don't know, we should not be starting this revision of the last 4 years of immediate history by talking about how everything was going great until he stepped out on that debate stage and shit his pants. It wasn't. It was pretty bad.
By the way, on that CBS show, they used to have more panel segments than they I don't know if they got an executive producer or some sort of change in approach, but I remember years ago, it maybe not every episode, but maybe like twice a month it would have actually like a panel segment. And
they always had a political panel segment. Jamel Bowie used to show up on there fairly regularly. But yeah, 2 or 3 years ago now, it feels like, since they've done a regular political panel of any sort, which is fine. They cover more serious subjects than simply the back and forth nonsense politics of the day, at least in the second half of the show, usually. Right. But anyway.
You were talking about being brief.
News this week, of course, we should acknowledge the passing of the 100-year-old Jimmy Carter. My mother texted me within hours of the announcement that, let's see what she said here.
Is Abe okay?
Abe's prediction has finally come true. Rest in peace, Jimmy from Plains. I just like to say, Abe's prediction was made, I believe, at the end of 2020. Right?
It was a long time ago.
Was it the end of 21?
I think it was at the end of 21.
It was end of 2020.
Because I think it was like, because when did the British Queen die? Like in 22?
Like you don't know.
No. Because you predicted it.
That they were both going to die.
The first year that we were doing this again.
No, but his end of 2021 prediction was to call for the death
I think that was end of 2020.
I was looking at the actuarial tables, and I was like, these people are up there in age. There's no way they're going to see a whole calendar year. There's no way they're going to survive all of 22.
So what's your prediction that the Queen's going to die in 2022?
Well, I suspect that the Queen and our Georgia former President Carter not going to see 23. Not a nice prediction, but I think this is it.
Okay.
Noted.
And one of them did not, from what I remember.
The Queen died in 22. Jimmy went into hospice in
like early
2023. Right. He went into hospice in, I think, late February or early March of 2023. So he outlived your prediction. He was living great all the way through 2022.
Great is a bit of a stretch.
And then in 23 goes into hospice and spends nearly 2 full years in hospice care.
Which is, I'm sure, it's got to be up there with. Usually, hospice is like you're inside of 6 months, a year tops.
Yeah, we're not treating anything. We're just going to keep you with enough fluids and nutrients in your belly to let your body take its natural course. And natural course took 2 years for things to finally go away. I do not credit Abe with any prediction whatsoever. This is what happens with humans. We die eventually, and Abe had a firm timeline. He doubled down on that bet in 2023 and was wrong again.
That's right.
And Jimmy lived all the way through 23.
I called you up at midnight. I left you a voicemail where I just yelled "shank" at you for 15 seconds.
So yeah.
How can it not be a great year?
It's going to be a great year, yeah. And basically anything that didn't come to fruition for my 2022 predictions are going to extend it for one more year.
Oh, okay.
You're rolling over your 2022 predictions as though it were like a vacation day that you didn't use. I wonder how former president would feel about that. Does that mean that you are calling that Jimmy Carter will die in 2023? Abe?
Right. Although if it happens within the first week of 2023, I will count that as them hiding him for 5 or 6 days just out of spite.
You want proof of life for the first week of 2023?
Yes, just to be on the safe side.
On that front, Abe, I have some good news. I was checking the show voicemail. I don't know if you know it, but we have a show voicemail.
Look at that.
This is what I heard when I played the voicemail.
This is Jimmy Carter from Plains, and I wanted on this beautiful day given to us by the Lord above to wish cast iron friends a very happy new year. God bless and thank you very much. And Abdul Rahman, bad day to you, son. I would have expected more from a fine civil servant such as yourself. See you in 2024, you sick son of a bitch.
What is wrong with you?
Talk about our bogus future.
And I'll note, in 2024, you were a coward. Not only, and we'll go through, I have pulled up all of our predictions that we made in last year's prediction show so that we may establish how wrong I was about the overwhelming majority of things.
Could that be a lesson to you?
Yeah, sure. But not only did you, it seems like your inability to predict the demise of the 39th president of the United States has led you...
Inability to predict the demise.
Yes, has led you to be much more cowardly in your willingness to make predictions about anything. You don't bet on sports anymore. You don't. You made almost no firm predictions about the entirety of 2024, as we'll go through in a moment. You basically just poo-pooed all of mine rather than actually making any of your own.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Abe has learned.
And I think Jimmy's speech, the famously, it was called the Malaise speech, right?
Yes.
Do you recall what the actual title of that speech was?
No, I just remember it as a Malaise.
Pop quiz hotshot. It was a crisis of confidence, and I believe that what we have here, Abe, is a crisis of confidence. The only thing that you predicted this year, and you didn't do it even in our prediction show. You had done this elsewhere, but you insisted on the Biffler and elsewhere that Donald Trump has no path to the presidency in 2024. You did say that. Right?
Yes.
There's just no way in which that is something that 100% that Donald Trump will not be reelected. And I wanted to believe you. I did for a time in 2024, in fact, believe that as well. But I don't think that you have the confidence, the faith in yourself that is required to make the sort of bold predictions that you used to make. And I think that the show is worse for it, if I'm being completely honest with you.
You know, a thing that I said at the end of 21 was wrong almost through 24. Like, we could have been into calendar year 25 and Jimmy Carter would still be alive somehow. I think you have to take in the information that comes at you. Like, I can get these things right. And so what's the point of making predictions if we're going to constantly get it wrong? I need to retool my system, and maybe in a few years I will circle back to making bets. But right now, this is the dormant phase of just like I need more information to figure out a better system.
The people like the bold takes, though, because it's fun to go back and look at how wrong that you were.
The thing is, obviously they have proven to be wrong after the fact, and it's funny. But like, I actually, I'm not just saying some of these things. I actually like to know where this is possible. I actually think that. I don't have that in my head anymore. Like, I don't know. Anything can happen now.
This is what I'm saying.
Jimmy Carter's been alive for so long.
No. That's an open-mindedness, a willingness to admit that we don't know things.
Yes.
I thought you would think that as a philosophy student.
Listen here, I'm also a podcast host. I was reading, and then I watched a good bit of the so-called Malaise speech, and reading it, it's a wonderful speech, and then watching it. It's certainly posted everywhere. You can go check it out on YouTube. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes to it if you want to. But watching the speech, he was not I mean, in part, it was a different time, so we expect different things out of our politicians now, just in terms of presentation. It was forceful and unpleasant in presentation, on top of it being sort of thematically dark, right? So like just the way that he gives the speech doesn't resonate, but reading it, it's actually kind of a wonderful speech, and in a weird way speaks directly to what Ronald Reagan claimed to be turning away from after the 70s, right? Like, so the turn toward Reagan, the Morning in America stuff, is sort of a fulfillment of the thing that Jimmy Carter was asking for of the American people in 1979. And I don't think that that's fully appreciated. I think that when we think back on that time, we think about how Jimmy Carter was this sort of scolding preacher, moralist type who told Americans that we couldn't have the things that we wanted to have. And then Reagan showed up and was like, no, fuck that. It's Morning in America. Things are going to be awesome because America's awesome. Jimmy was very much talking about how great the American people are and how he just sort of needs to do a better job of listening to them and asking of them what they want to do. Right. And yeah, I don't know. It's worth reading. I think that if you just watch it or listen to it, you don't get the best of it because he's not a very good speech giver. But yeah, it's a good speech. I continue to be amused. In part, it's because he had such a successful post-presidency. But the reframing of the Carter presidency as somehow actually secretly good is kind of funny. Because it wasn't a terribly successful time in American history. I mean, it was very bad in terms of the economy and in terms of unemployment.
It was a pretty rough stretch, that 70s, right? I mean, like from Watergate on, just like nothing like good was happening. People were just kind of in the dumps, like, and so like I think like New York City was about to file for bankruptcy because they were out of money. Just not a very good stretch of time. And so like if you're, I mean like Gerald Ford he wasn't even voted in. Like he just became the guy that was president, and then he lost the election. So like he was a president that nobody ever voted for, and then Jimmy Carter showed up, and then people weren't happy there. It took a while for people to kind of get out of this funk, and it was like 7 years of just funk.
Yeah. But anyway, all right. I don't want to, like I said, I want to go quickly through the news of the week.
Could I just mention something about Jimmy Carter? You know, this is a standard practice where they write the obituary in advance, you know, for a lot of prominent figures in anticipation of when they actually die. The Washington Post, one of the reporters listed in the byline for Jimmy Carter's obituary died 10 years ago.
Right.
There's a name under the obituary for a dude, if you look at his Wikipedia, died in 2014. That's how old Jimmy Carter is.
Wait, how did you learn that?
I was, reading up on this Jimmy Carter guy. I was like, oh, finally, he croaks. And then, like, somehow it came to, I just saw it somewhere on the...
And you decided to Google the people who wrote the obituary?
Someone mentioned it online somewhere. Like, I didn't know whether this is true. And then I had to verify it. And then it's like, oh, shit, this guy is...
Find out how truly psychotic you are.
And the New York Times, the similar, not 10 years, but the New York Times also has a reporter that's already dead. Jimmy Carter outlives everybody. And he outlived many of his detractors. That's why it's great. Like if you have a shaky presidency, live long enough that most of the people who are around are dead, and people just know you about the Habitat for Humanity guy, peanut farmer. Like that's just what you're known for, right? Just the good stuff. It's a great strategy.
Even better than having the New York Times or the Washington Post obituary writer predecease you by a decade is the fact that Jimmy Carter is going to be eulogized by Walter Mondale, who died in 2021. He's going to be eulogized also by former
AI them? How?
By former President Gerald Ford, who died in 2006.
Are they going to hologram these people, or did they already...
who had written a eulogy for Jimmy Carter clearly in the early 2000s, before Gerald Ford thought that he was going to die anytime soon, right? Like Gerald Ford was an old man who believed that he was going to outlive Jimmy Carter 25 years ago.
That's great. Yeah. By the way, speaking of Gerald Ford, I think there's an SNL skit about that where they're like,
Gerald Ford died today.
Gerald Ford died today.
all the different scenarios.
Yeah, one of the all-time great Dana Carvey sketches is the Gerald Ford died today sketch. Is it? And I was going to bring this up, and I've forgotten about it. I'm glad that you mentioned the dead editorial writers. It is like the ultimate fuck you and spiteful.
Yes.
Like, I'm just going to live forever to have Walter because it's not going to be AI. They're not going to be hologrammed. They're going to have the sons of Walter Mondale and the son of Gerald Ford give these speeches and these eulogies. Although, wouldn't it be better also if, like, instead of Biden speaking at the thing, that he also had, like, Hunter give the eulogy?
Yes.
I'm not sure Joe's in any better condition than Walter Mondale or Gerald Ford to give a speech at the funeral at this point. But anyway, good times. There will be all sorts of tributes and services and various things. And I can't imagine that this played any role whatsoever. But do you think Jimmy's knowledge that Trump was going to be the president as of the end of January played any role in maybe somewhere deep down inside? He's like, what am I really hanging on for at this point? If I'm just going to be, if I'm going to die and then this asshole is the one who has to handle all of my lying in state stuff and all of the state funeral stuff that goes with being a dead president. Like, isn't it better to get it out of the way now?
I do wonder if that played a role. Also, do you tell, like, all the caretakers for Jimmy Carter, do you tell the outcome of the election? Or, he sends his mail-in ballot or however he did it, and he's not paying attention to election night, right? He's still living in his world. Like, do you break the news to him? Like, it didn't go your way?
I don't know. According to the family, he was still, like, watching the news.
Oh, he was aware? Oh, please.
Abe, I know that you've been claiming that he's actually secretly been dead for quite some time here. But I take Jason Carter and the rest of the family at their word. I see no reason to distrust them.
All
right. Let's get into the 2024 predictions recap. We will hopefully do a predictions show soon, next week, maybe the week after that.
When did we do the prediction this one? Like in March or something? Didn't it take a while?
It wasn't quite that bad. It was, I think, the first week in February.
Okay.
Or
there you go.
Maybe even a little later than that. But I went back and listened to it today so that I could take notes on our various predictions. And yeah, you might suggest that perhaps you should walk away with a little bit of humility if you can go back and listen to things that you said a year ago that you were suggesting might happen, and like almost none of them happened. And yeah, certainly to some extent that's true. But also, I made bold predictions, and they're bold predictions because I don't think that they're actually terribly likely, but they are informed by the world that we live in, and I think that they were largely directionally correct. Is all I'll say.
Oh,
in my defense of myself.
They feel true, huh?
Mike Johnson will not be the Speaker of the House by the end of 2024, is something that I said. This turns out, of course, to be wrong, but I believe is directionally correct. He only today did Donald Trump finally issue an endorsement of the ongoing speakership of Mike Johnson, because, of course, there's a new Congress that will be sworn in next week or at the end of this week. And therefore, a new speaker is required. The speakership doesn't automatically carry over.
It's a new Congress, right? Yeah.
Right, because it's a whole new Congress. And only today did Donald Trump offer his complete and total endorsement, or whatever it is that he says at the end of long truths. By the way, something quite devious, and it should be humiliating to the Trump crowd if such things were capable of humiliating them. But he leaves Twitter and then starts a social network called Truth Social, and then every post is called a truth, right? And so if you're going to refer to it by its branded name, you would say a Trump truth, in the same way that you might have previously said a Trump tweet. And like, it speaks to such a profound insecurity on the part of Donald Trump.
I feel like you've said this before.
I probably have, but it is freshly annoying to me for some reason.
Do you think he's just trying to be? He thinks he's being clever. Like they have to say it that way.
Yes, this is going to force George Stephanopoulos on this week to say Trump truthed over the weekend.
More truths out of Trump.
I said that anytime Mike Johnson or the Republicans do something that looks like governance, they will get in trouble with one part of the Republican caucus or another. That is true, and it continues to be true, and is only going to be more true as they deal in this next Congress with an even slimmer majority than they had the last time around. And this is assuming that Matt Gaetz does not show up to be sworn in a couple of days, which, again, it's not clear. I haven't seen any reporting that he has filed paperwork to suggest that he's not going to show up and get sworn in. He has announced in the media that he's not going to be fulfilling the congressional term to which he was elected. But it's not clear to me that he's actually not going to show up. And if he doesn't show up, they will have precisely a one vote margin, right? So Thomas Massie has said that he's not going to vote for Mike Johnson to be Speaker of the House. He said this before Trump endorsed him, so I haven't seen whether or not Massie's mind will change based on Trump's endorsement. My suspicion is that it will not, that will not matter. But that they've lost the one that they can afford to lose. And now Mike Johnson needs complete solidarity from the rest of the Republican caucus in order to be made the Speaker of the House without further Democratic support, which I don't think we would see forthcoming, given the fact that the Democrats would then be installing Mike Johnson so that he can oversee on January 6th the confirmation of the electors, right? Because that's when the reason that January 6th sticks in the mind, of course, is because that is the day that the vice president goes to Congress and helps certify the election results, right? You need a Speaker of the House for all of that to be taking place. If without the votes of the Republicans and the Democrats to elect a Speaker of the House, they have to put off January 6th. It'd be quite a hoot.
Right.
And certainly the sort of chaos that the Democrats wouldn't be quick to help the Republicans put that fire out, I wouldn't think.
Also, I suspect that Mike Johnson's job security rests on this very narrow margin. Basically, it's impossible to put up another name without causing a lot of chaos. Like, he's a known quantity, so it'll be difficult, but we can try to get everybody except for one or two people, although they can't afford a second one at this point. But basically, he's a known quantity. It's let's just live with who we have, and maybe the Trump endorsement will kind of cement it. But if they had a 20 or 30 seat margin, then I think his job would be in more peril. You would see, okay, we can afford to lose some of the other votes, and we can still push through somebody else that we want. But because they don't have that flexibility, he's good until at least 26, right? Until something changes in the midterms.
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
Oh, you're going to double down on your 25 prediction?
Are you kidding me? Of course that's coming.
Because think about it.
I will, in Abe fashion, no crisis of confidence over here. There's a 0% chance that Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House by the end of 2025.
You would have, we'll see how this next week goes with just getting Mike Johnson through just as Speaker for this new Congress. But it's going to be a shit show to try to replace him.
Yeah, absolutely. I assume that they managed to get all of the votes necessary, 218 votes, to make him the Speaker of the House on the 3rd. I don't know that lasts through the spring. Because, again, anytime they do something that looks like good governance in terms of keeping the government open, in terms of funding the necessaries, they get yelled at, right? And that's because there's a small handful of the former Freedom Caucus types who are still mad about the fact, and understandably so, that Mike Johnson came in saying this was not going to be the same sort of Congress that Kevin McCarthy ran, and that the old fuckers in the Republican Party, the way that they've been doing business which has been bad, right? And you can go listen to what like Justin Amash has said about the way that the sausage is made in Congress these days, and it's all made by like the same 5 or 6 old people at the top of the party who make all of the decisions, and that happens whether it's the Republicans in charge or whether it's the Democrats in charge. That all of this stuff is hashed out by party leadership rather than the true democratic process in terms of making laws, and that hasn't changed an iota under Mike Johnson.
It's not going to change it under the next guy either. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're arguing about,
but you haven't satisfied the reason that Kevin McCarthy got the boot. You've simply done the same thing over and over again, and will continue doing the same thing over and over again. And eventually, there will be a small. It was Matt Gaetz last time. It will be the Texas weirdo, or the Arizona weirdo, or Lauren Boebert, or somebody who shits in the punch bowl and forces the issue at some point.
Right.
Or, like I said last year, simple attrition. Right. We've got Demented Lady that we talked about last week at the in the old folks home.
Yeah.
You don't have any wiggle room in terms of what you can afford to lose. At this, I think with a full complement, they have a 3-vote cushion, right?
Yeah.
Assuming that they have everybody in town and they have everybody who's supposed to be there. And once the special elections are done, they will have a 3-vote cushion, and that's nothing. That's less than they've had before.
I wonder if it's like almost like if you're a member of Congress, if you're in the minority party, you can just vote no and like nobody bothers you. But like if you were in this very narrow majority, you can be harassed all the time by the speaker's office and the whip and all these people trying to get you in line. And so like it would be just like an easier job to have if you're just in in the minority party right now. Just like, whatever.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just going to vote no, and then I can always defend the no.
Yeah. All right. Second thing that I said, and this was an outgrowth of the first thing that I said, was that Hakeem Jeffries would be the Speaker of the House by the end of 2024, whether through attrition or simply through like Mike Johnson stepping down and leaving and the balance of power shifting. I acknowledged very, very slim chance of that happening, but given that I saw it as even the slightest 10 or 15% possibility, I felt compelled to make it a bold prediction. Didn't happen. Democrats will win the House. Republicans will gain control of the Senate. I was half right. The Republicans did gain control of the Senate. Republicans, of course, maintained control of the House, though barely. Corollary to this prediction, something that you finally piped up and said, was that we would have unified government one way or another. The presidency and the House and the Senate would all be of the same party. And though you were so cowardly as to refuse to even say at that point which way you thought the winds were blowing, you were saying you could not possibly foresee a situation in which Joe Biden won but didn't also gain control of the House and the Senate, or that Donald Trump won and didn't also maintain control of the House and the Senate.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. I guess that makes sense. Look at that.
Yeah, although much closer margins than I think you probably would have guessed.
I thought,
what anyone really you would have expected, based on the relative ease with which Donald Trump won the presidency, he did not have coattails once again. There were no. This was not the sort of landslide that he certainly wants to make it out to be. And he's not walking in with this insane mandate, as evidenced by the fact that Mike Johnson is going to struggle to be made the Speaker of the House this week, and certainly going to struggle to hold on to that position over the course of the next 2 years. This was very closely contested, and you were right, but only barely so. Also, this was an absurd prediction. I will acknowledge now. I said there's no way that Mitch McConnell will endorse Donald Trump, and it was less than 2 weeks later from, I think, the time that I made that prediction that Mitch McConnell said that it should surprise no one that Donald Trump will have my support. It was not a full-throated endorsement.
No, of course not. Yeah.
Or anything like that.
Right.
But McConnell did say, look, he's a Republican, I'm a Republican. Yeah. Do the math there.
Anytime somebody has to do this long way of saying I'm supporting somebody that they don't want to, it's just like, well, he won the primaries. What are you going to do?
Yeah. and I said this during the prediction show, and I held on to this for, I think, a matter of months. And then I didn't obviously go back and listen to every show this year. I think by like April or May, I was getting seriously worried. And then by the summer, certainly before the debate happened, I was off of this, which was Donald Trump has no path to victory. I had teamed up with that thing that you would say. There's just no way in which Donald Trump can win this election. And that was obviously fucking wrong.
Yeah.
But I had long since abandoned that well in advance of the election, so I don't feel too bad about it.
I will say though, even if you took away Biden's should have left the Democratic Party nomination for 24 earlier, to give time for a full nomination process. It's still I'm still surprised at the number of people that voted for Trump, right? So I wonder even if you had a full nominating process, if you got through that, and it likely wouldn't have been Kamala, it would have been somebody else, let's say Shapiro or somebody. Let's say it was Shapiro and Whitmer or something like that, some sort of combination like that. Would those voters that voted for Trump have peeled off and stayed home, or it still would have been a very close race, and Trump had the advantage anyways because of the environment, the economy.
It's the economy, and I think it has. I will acknowledge it has a lot to do with inflation and the economy. I don't think you can downplay the indictments that came down in the first couple of months of 2023 being the fire under the ass of Donald Trump's support. If you look at, I think it was a Kornacki tweet where he tweeted a photo of Trump's rolling poll averages or relative support, and you watch what happens when the Bragg indictments in New York come down. He goes from being even with, or DeSantis having a reasonable shot at Donald Trump, and I think wasn't DeSantis winning at some point relatively early in this process?
I mean, he had a very good midterm, right? He won by a very decisive margin in 22, and he looked like the heir apparent guy. And
right. So by early 23, it looks like it's going to be Ron DeSantis or someone else. And the polls at that point are suggesting that might be the case. And then Alvin Bragg comes out and does what he does with the goofy indictments. And then the Mar-a-Lago raid happens a few months after that. And he never fucking looked back, right? It was that combined with the fact that somebody almost shot him in the fucking head on live television. And I don't think you can downplay how much that plays into the psychology of this past election, which is he was a hair away from having his head exploded on national television, and then instead stands up in a phalanx of Secret Service agents and raises his hand with his face bloodied, and he's chanting "fight, fight, fight" or mouthing "fight, fight, fight" at the crowd, and it's this motherfucker was it was meant to be. It's written in the fucking stars. Not for me, but for a number of people who are watching this happen. It has to. The feeling among them has to be, this is the galvanizing thing that we needed. This is how things are supposed to be, and it's a fucking bummer. Not that I wish that the bullet had. That he had not turned his head in that exact moment, obviously, but if you're pointing at. You could talk about it in terms of the economy, in terms of Biden's decline, in terms of inflation, but there's something about the fact that he was under such a great deal of pressure from the legal system and from fucking crazies, multiple assassination attempts, and the American people have some. I don't know. I don't. Well, you're talking about it in terms of weird mystical shit, right? But he exudes a sort of undefeatable power in those moments that people fucking like, and it gets people to show up. And I don't know that Shapiro Whitmer mega ticket or any other non-Kamala Harris ticket would have mattered in the face of this guy almost got his head exploded on live television and lived to talk about it later.
Trump often will make the argument that they are out to get him, and what better evidence of that than a trumped up kind of like misdemeanors turned into felonies, like in New York, and then like, almost getting assassinated, right? So like if you were like primed to believe that there's a they out there and that they're out to get this guy because he's like fighting for you, right? You're like, holy shit, he's onto something. They are trying to get him. They're trying to stop him, and I'm going to make sure that they don't or whatever, right? So like it's a very like it kind of all worked together. To where, like, if you already thought that was somewhat true, then that was evidence for that. It was like proof positive.
And I don't know that it's determinative in terms of the election. I don't know in the same way that I don't think that the Hunter Biden laptop was determinative of the 2020 election one way or another. But at the very least, the way that these things work on the margins, right? We're only talking about a couple of 100,000 votes in 3 states. Like it's a small thing. And so when you say things like, well, maybe Shapiro as the VP pick really would have mattered there in the upper Midwest. Right. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have. Like that, when we're talking about margins this small, would it have mattered more than Trump almost getting shot in the head in Pennsylvania? I doubt it.
Right.
To me, that's more important. But I don't have any way of knowing what goes on in the brains of all of these people. All right. Also, I said that Jimmy Carter will cast a vote in the 2024 election.
Oh.
Look at that.
Abe, you were too cowardly to predict Carter's death once again, as mentioned earlier. Let's see. I said it would be the smallest plurality to elect a president. This was a interesting early year take for me. This was at the moment of RFK Jr.'s greatest heights in popularity in terms of he was polling. Like some poll came out that insisted that he was going to get like 20% of the vote or something like that.
Like a Ross Perot type?
Right, like Ross Perot levels. And there were there was a great deal of excitement about potential third-party stuff, and it was obvious that Joe Biden didn't have much enthusiasm behind him, and that was still at the point where I was convinced that Donald Trump's ceiling was like 39 to 41%, right? That like,
right.
Yes, he had everybody, but I didn't think that he was going to have majority support, certainly by any means. I don't think anybody thought that Donald Trump was going to actually win a majority of votes cast in 2024. So I suggested that we would have the smallest plurality ever to elect a president, with the assumption being that Joe Biden would be the one to pull this off. And that was obviously super wrong. And of course, yeah, I mean, Kennedy ends up teaming up with Donald Trump, and nothing like a viable third party shows up in the 2024 election. I said that Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States, which was predicated in the conversation that we were having on Biden winning and then stepping down at some point in early 2025. Obviously, that didn't happen, although the Biden sort of abdicating thing basically did. I said Hunter Biden will absolutely be pardoned by Joe Biden this year.
Yeah.
And Abe said, no way.
There is no way. Yeah, I still can't believe it. There is no way that would happen.
Keeping with the political end of things, I said that social unrest and violent protests and potential chaos at the 2024 DNC was making me nervous. That turned out to be wrong. They kept all of the anti-Israel loonies far away from the festivities there for the most part. And that was a relatively peaceful event, and we didn't get much widespread social upset this year, in part because Donald Trump won, and those most prone to widespread social upset, I guess, didn't have reason to be upset in the streets. Also, are you surprised at all by the lack of, let's call it pussy hat energy this time around? After Donald Trump won in 2016, the culture was stricken. We were like we were shocked. We were appalled. There was the Pink Pussy Hat March on Washington in January of 2017, or maybe it was the first week in February.
It was the day after inauguration.
Was it January 21st?
Isn't that where the Muslims? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was pretty soon after inauguration.
It was the next day.
Are we
next Saturday?
Should we be surprised by the lack of sort of organized social upset about the fact that Donald Trump won? Because it felt like there was much more energy, resistance energy last time around than there is this time. Or are we just collectively resigned to whatever's coming?
I think people learned that it's not helpful.
Yeah, That and also it's two different environments. I mean, 2016, the polling had Trump underwater, right? So like it was a shock that he won, right? I mean, it was like I don't know what the final poll averages were, but he was down somewhat, right? And so like if the polls held, he would have lost. That he won was a shock, and like this never ever happened before. We never experienced Trump before, and so like
again, I know that it's something that I harp on a lot. The thing that always sticks out to me is that it's like somebody said the week before the election, it's like Hillary has to make a 42-yard field goal.
Yeah.
Like
they should use that as an example.
That gave me a great deal of pause.
Right.
Because as a Shank enthusiast, not nearly as much of a Shank enthusiast as my good friend and co-host over there, but I've seen a lot of 40-yard field goals go awry.
Oh, yeah. Even 30-some-odd. You always see some weird shanks. There were some 30-some-odd shanks in college football.
There was a 33-yard doink that would have given a team a playoff, kept their playoff hopes alive.
The Broncos.
Bengals. No, the Bengals.
The Bengals.
Bengals doinked a
That's
33-yard field goal that would have ended the game. They ended up winning it anyway.
Anyways, yeah.
But yeah. No sure thing.
No, it's no sure thing. And I don't know why they waited until, like, I remember that being brought up the last couple of weeks. They should have done that all summer long to kind of give people some perspective. But anyways, going back to why is it different, there was the surprise election. There was the marching. There was the Charlottesville thing. There was the January. All of these things happened, and now they're baked into this vote, and people still voted for it. So it's like, what's the point, right? So I think going forward, like Trump would have to do something, and then people will react to that, to specific things, but there won't be like a preemptive, like we're going to march. Like
It's not helpful. It proved not helpful.
Right.
Also, you're right about the fucking gender war. You're lucky you're married. Good luck, men. Women don't want to fuck you anymore because of this guy.
Is it hard out there for the dudes?
It's about to be.
Abe, you'll have to report back.
Oh, yes. But I mean, they're already saying, the generation younger than us, there's this divide where men are skewing right and women are, I mean, they've always been on the left, but like staying or skewing left.
Yep.
So like there's this gap now.
You get them married, and all of a sudden they turn into Republicans. It's what they do. Women's. All right. I had mentioned that you are cowardly not making predictions, and that it's not entirely fair because you make three pretty hard and fast predictions here, including you insisted that Biden would not pardon his son Hunter. Of course, that was wrong. You also said 2024, the campaign will be relatively boring. And
Oh, boy.
it was and I agreed with you in the moment because it felt like we had already been in this campaign for like 2 years, right? Like it was like, okay, Biden and Trump again, right? Like basically since the beginning of 23 when Trump started fighting back against like publicly, because he'd sort of been under the radar a little bit. Like through the midterms of that year, as you were discussing. Like Ron DeSantis looks like he's on the come, and the Democrats have a relatively decent performance there since everyone was predicting a red wave. As it turns out, it wasn't a red wave. And Trump was not as big of a factor at the national level. And I think there was this feeling through lots of 2021, 22 was the sort of the Mitch McConnell feeling of things was like, that's all behind us now, right? Like, we're not going to talk about that anymore because of what happened in January of 2021. He bears personal moral responsibility for what happened then, and that's all behind us now. We don't have to worry about that anymore, even though we didn't impeach him and remove him and all of that and make it impossible for him to be president again. It's all behind us. And then in 2023, it's like, oh, shit, that's not behind us. I guess we're doing this again. We're just running it back. We're doing Trump, Biden again. It's what we're going to do. And so, like, to be fair to your prediction, it sort of felt like this is just, we're doing this again. No big surprises here. And then Trump, like, he almost got shot in the head. I think I've said this a few times, but he was a half an inch away from having his head exploded on live television. And not like the grainy Zapruder film from fucking
this was high def.
500 yards away with some guy having a hand crank a goddamn film through the thing, right? This would have lived forever, not on the dark web, but just like in our collective imaginations, that this man has had a man whose face that we know better collectively maybe than any other face at this point, right? Like he's just been in our faces for so long, in a way that a lot of other public figures aren't. We would have had in our heads his head exploding, right? And that we were that close to that happening. And then also Joe Biden came out on stage and immediately shit his pants in that debate. Like he walked out, maybe even before he made it to that lectern, he was already. You could you if you have a small toddler, you can turn them around and you look and they've got the saggy butt where they've just filled their diaper with shit. And you ask the kid, you're like, hey, did you poop? And like, no poop. And then you turn them around and you look and it's like, there's a cannonball in your pants, man. I can see it there hanging loose. And
no poop.
No, there's poop there. Trust me, dude, there's a poop. And then he runs away and he says, no poop, slide. And then he slides down the slide with the giant shit in his pants. It's like, God damn it, did you have to do the slide? That was Joe Biden's 2024. Yeah. God damn it, Joe, did you have to do the slide with the poopy diaper? Right. And it turns out he did. So, Abe, 2024 campaign will be relatively boring. I'm going to give you a nope.
That is way off as it turns out. It's funny to remember that it was Biden that was egging Trump on to do the debate. Like they had like that spliced together 15-second clip of like, hey buddy, how about it? Let's duke it out, and then that happened.
Is it possible that Joe, because he said he had a pushback today, in part as a response to that Wall Street Journal story from last week, and in part just in an attempt to sort of patch up his reputation here at the end, with everybody talking about what a mess he is and how he's not there anymore. So coming from Biden world is this insistence that Biden believes that he made a mistake in pulling himself out and that he would have beaten Trump, and that actually everything is great, that he's not in any sort of decline. And like, is it possible that he actually believes that?
He must, right? I think you have to be very egotistical and a little bit delusional to be at that level, right? I mean, he ran and lost twice before. One, he got derailed by him plagiarizing a speech. So like, you need to have like that delusion to say like, oh, my career is done. Like, I'll just be in the Senate forever. Like, he's like, I'm going to have another shot at this, right? And like actually, now that we think about it, what was that report that he took great exception to, where he's a well-meaning but doddering old man who forgets things? Like
Robert Hur, the guy who Merrick Garland appointed to find out whether or not Biden should be prosecuted for withholding documents or for holding on to classified material that he shouldn't have, as multiple presidents have through the years, right? They get into a fight with the National Archive about what's theirs and what isn't. Biden apparently had some documents from his vice presidential days that he was keeping in a fucking garage. And Robert Hur comes out with that report that says he broke the law, but I'm not going to take him to trial because a jury would suggest that this is a person who is well-meaning and forgetful, and probably did he do the wrong? Yes, but ultimately it doesn't matter. And that was taken to be, Kamala said that was a partisan hack job, right? And then the entire Democratic messaging machine in the media followed up on that by insisting that this was just politics and that Robert Hur was a scumbag. Robert Hur clearly told the truth. Right. This is the person who simply said the thing that was plain as day to everyone else, and has been absolutely vindicated by the events of the last calendar year.
Right. In retrospect, like a generous assessment of things, he didn't like take any sort of like unnecessary. I mean, it seemed like unnecessary at the time, but in retrospect, it's not. But like, based on Biden's response then and his assessment of things now, he must believe it in order for him to maintain his like sense of like place. Like I'm still like this was a great administration, or we did a lot of things. I'm sure that's what he's thinking, right? Like, he doesn't see that his legacy will not be good because of how this last year ended. He could have argued the other stuff. I know you said that things fell apart back in that after the honeymoon ended, like when the Delta surge and then specifically the Afghanistan withdrawal happened in that summer of 2021. But like if things had turned out differently, he could salvage the legislations passed in 22 and say like we survived the midterms better than other whatever. Like he could have argued that, but now the legacy's in tatters.
Yeah, there's no legacy. There's no Joe Biden legacy. It will be a completely forgotten presidency. It will be the weird in between time in between the two Trump administrations.
And
like
Biden didn't have 40 years to do other things.
Right. No, he'll be dead in 25 in all likelihood.
No, he'll be around for a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm getting my confidence back.
Abe washes his hands
Abe is out of the business of predicting death.
Disgusting business of predicting presidential mortality. I don't think we ever talked about that Wall Street Journal story on the show last week or the week before, whenever it came out. It is worth reading. I'll make sure there's a link to it in the show note. I don't know if I'll try to find an archived version of it so that it's you don't have to worry about the paywall. But I thought the most interesting part of it was the stuff around the Robert Hur report, where Biden's team talked about the hours and hours of prep that they were doing ahead of his conversation with Robert Hur, and how none of it was sticking. Like they're like, yeah, but he's prepping for hours. Like he's still with it. Like this is people who are talking up Joe Biden. Right. Who are having to acknowledge that we're having to do hours and hours of daily prep to get him ready for an investigation by somebody who's looking into almost certainly criminal wrongdoing that Biden did, whether it was mistaken or whether it was simply a mistake or was sort of aggravated in some way or intentional in some way, but also that they're having to do all of this prep because he's a diminished person. Right? Like they cannot make the cognitive dissonance equal out in their minds in terms of saying, no, he's completely with it, but also we need to do hours and hours of prep to make sure he knows exactly what to say to this person. And then it doesn't go well.
Right. And also, I mean, anyway. there was similar arguments about, I remember leading up to that June debate of like, a lot of prep, ready to go, a lot of prep, and then that prep didn't hold either.
Right. And he's saying now, I was sick. Right. He continues to maintain the line that they used in the immediate aftermath of the thing, which is, well, he was sick. Right. And he says, no, I was just, I had one bad day, and now you're going to judge my entire presidency on that? It's like, no, man, that's not what we're doing.
Yes. There was another bad day that Clooney wrote about, like in his op-ed, right? So there's been a lot of bad days.
Well, again, I mentioned that you said you weren't going to make predictions, and you mostly didn't. But the ones that you did make were flatly wrong.
Right. So see, goes to show you don't make predictions.
You also said there would be pre-Olympics Paris terror in some form.
I was almost right.
Another.
I mean, wasn't there some sort of train issue like the day before it started? Not that I'm wishing.
Are you trying
to
give yourself half credit for a
First of all,
event?
I mean, we don't know and won't know what they caught and so didn't happen.
Yeah, maybe they listened to this. The prediction show. They got ahead of it.
We need some inside information from the Paris police, or the Paris version of the FBI.
FBI, yeah.
To tell us what they prevented. And then the very last thing that I said was that Taylor Swift will heel turn in 2024 and enter her Wicked era.
You did say that. I remember.
That hasn't happened yet.
It didn't happen
Wrong.
this year. I maintain that the reason it didn't happen is because of that shooting that took place in Kansas City earlier this year. There was this big...
right after the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl
right after
parade,
the Super
right?
Bowl,
It was like for the parade, right?
Chiefs, the end of the Chiefs parade, there was a weird shooting that happened. I don't remember what the resolution of that was.
It was like a domestic issue.
I think that derailed what was almost certainly a planned heel turn by Taylor Swift later in the year.
So she's stuck with this guy because of someone got shot almost a year ago?
She has stuck with the dummy tight end through this year simply because of that. I think the heel turn is still coming.
Maybe down the road. I mean, I think... I don't know when her world tour ended, but like it was like well into 24, right? So you at least want to wait until that ends.
Yeah, she's been very busy.
To break break bad, right? Maybe in 25, 26.
Well, we'll see. I'll do a little bit more research on like Us Weekly and People and what have you, and maybe inspect Taylor's Instagram history.
You've never sounded older than you did just now, acting like that's where you find things out.
See if I can figure out
People's Journal and U.S. Weekly Report.
Where Taylor's going this year. That is all of our predictions from the 2024 prediction show. Not a great track record overall, I don't know why anybody listens to us on anything, really.
No one does.
I did tease, was it last week?
Yeah, I didn't let you talk about something.
Kylie Kelce.
Yes, that's what it is. While we're on Kelce.
Yeah, as long as we're on the Kelce situation, let's very quickly do this. Headline New York Times a couple weeks ago, Kylie Kelce doesn't want to talk about besting Joe Rogan. This is a profile in the New York Times, and I ignored it when it came across the Times will push an article out or what have you.
Good instinct, though.
Apparently, Kylie Kelce is worthy of a push notification from the fucking New York Times.
If you have your notifications for New York Times on, she is.
Was it the editor's pick? Because I think I have that on as a notification. I should turn that off because I think that the editors would be making the right choices, but they don't often.
Yeah, usually not.
The editors are robots now.
Yeah.
I got updates from the New York Times. It was like, okay, Jimmy Carter, dead. And then I got like some other lady who you might have heard of, also dead at 92. And then a few hours later, it was like, there was this stage actor who was nominated for a Tony. She's dead too. It's like, what are we doing here, New York Times? We had a president die. You can't be giving me fucking 80-year-old women who once acted.
Who cares about women?
60 years ago on stage as push notifications. Anyway, here's how this. I ended up reading the article because it showed up in the physical paper, which I got last week. For some reason, even though I've told them to stop delivering.
We didn't get it the week before. We didn't get it this week, but we got it last week.
We did get it last week. A good thing, too, because now I could read about Kylie Kelce in the New York Times. First paragraph. When a podcast hosted by Kylie Kelce, a 32-year-old high school field hockey coach, unseated the Joe Rogan Experience as the top-ranked show in the United States this month, strong reactions followed. Now, that's a one-sentence paragraph, Abe, and I'm already fucking flying, right? I go from zero to fully turned after just one sentence. And really, it's the second clause of the sentence. Can you tell me why I got so mad at the New York Times article and specifically that first sentence?
Is it about the strong reaction?
Yeah, why did I have such a strong reaction to
that?
No,
but what was the second part of that? I thought there was some sort of reaction to the fact that she unseated Joe Rogan.
We'll get there in a moment. When a podcast hosted by Kylie Kelce, a 32-year-old high school field hockey coach.
Oh. And
why are we describing Kylie Kelce as a 32-year-old field hockey coach? Right. That's not who she is in any meaningful way.
That's why. That's not why she's got a podcast, anyways.
Why does she have a podcast?
Because she's the wife of a former football player whose brother is dating Taylor Swift.
Literally because she's somebody's wife.
Yeah,
right?
but it also, Jason is her husband?
Yes.
Jason, he's famous himself.
Right. But it's that plus his brother.
She's not the wife of the brother of a famous person dating another famous person.
But if it was just...
She's the wife of a famous person who's in commercials.
Right, but if it was just Jason Kelce, right, and he's got the stupid soup commercials or whatever he's got, like, I don't think she's toppling Joe Rogan, right? I think that the Taylor Swift.
It is the connection to Taylor World and Travis World that makes her a person of interest in the pop culture, right? So she's not only is it because she's somebody's wife, it's because she's somebody's wife who's somebody's brother who's dating somebody super fucking famous, right? Who's dating the most famous woman in the world at the moment. But the New York Times insists in the second clause of this article that Kylie Kelce is a 32-year-old high school field hockey coach. So we're burying important information, and we're doing it on purpose, which is my main contention here. We get to paragraph 5 of this. Of course, some of her family members are household names. There is her husband, Jason Kelce, former center for the Philadelphia Eagles, soon to be late-night host and one of the most charismatic stars in American sports.
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
Soon to be late-night host?
Oh, did you not know this about Jason Kelce?
What is he doing?
Jason Kelce is to co-host a late-night show starting on ESPN on
ESPN.
Not like
January
late
3rd.
night.
Like they're gonna get rid of one of the sports centers for him.
Apparently, they're going to. They
Who
call
watches
it.
Sports Center?
That's
No
true.
one.
Kelce announced during an appearance on ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live on Thursday night that he will host They Call It Late Night with Jason Kelce on ESPN. The one-hour show will tape on 5 straight Friday nights beginning January 3rd. It coincides with the last week of the NFL's regular season and the playoffs. So he will do, I guess, like a month
The pilot?
pilot series for ESPN, and they'll see how it goes from there. Article goes on. There is her brother-in-law, Travis Kelce, the tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, who has been dating the world's biggest pop star. The brothers have their own hit video podcast, New Heights, which Amazon's Wondery bought the advertising sales and distribution rights to in August for more than $100 million. So the point here that I'm getting at here in my initial reaction to this is the incredibly dishonest framing of why Kylie Kelce matters at all. Why she has a podcast, why she's getting written up in the New York Times, why any of it matters is because it has just nothing to do with her. And they will not acknowledge, like, I'm sure she's perfectly charming, right? I'm sure she's perfectly good at what she does, whatever it is that she does. I'm not going to listen to her podcast. But why she's there is because of her famous family members. There's not any other reason.
Right.
She's there. She's in this position strictly because of her famous family members.
Is it possible that was like an attempt at a joke, kind of like understating it deliberately just to kind of get a go at people? Like, obviously that's not why, but like I'm gonna
feel like she's not famous enough.
Include like a factual thing that's like misleading. It's like that's not why.
No, because she's not famous enough for that.
It might have been done winkingly. It is possible that it is done winkingly, but it is done winkingly in service of a political project, which is to say, we need to honor this person for who she is and what she has accomplished on her own, rather than simply to say it's because of who she married that she is in the position that she's in.
Because you're not supposed to describe someone as someone's wife.
Right, but it's an absurdity.
But in this case, you should.
It's an absurdity to suggest that she's in this position for any reason other than the fact that she married someone famous. That's all it is. It's the only reason that she's in this position, to have the most popular podcast on Spotify at the time of publication of this article. The other thing that I was amused by in this article is this insistence that what she has here is a wildly popular hit podcast because it showed up atop the charts on Spotify. In the big picture, Rogan still has far more reach. Spotify's chart placement, for example, is determined by a combination of recent unique listeners and overall follower counts. And when it comes to overall followers, Rogan has 16.3 million on the platform. Kelce has 172,000. Still, in its first week, Not Gonna Lie accumulated a combined 25 million audio downloads and social media views, according to Wave Sports Plus Entertainment, the company behind Miss Kelce's show, making it Wave's most successful launch. That sounds like an impressive number, right? A combined 25 million audio downloads and social media views, according to the company behind the launch of the podcast. And that is almost the entire story here. Is Wave Sports Plus Entertainment is a publicist company that is trying to make things happen and is the only reason that this profile is happening in the New York Times. And the number 25 million combined audio downloads and social media views is probably as reliable as when NBC said last year that Peacock, when they streamed the NFL playoff game, represented the I believe they insisted that it was the busiest 3 hours in the history of the internet because of the streaming of an NFL game on a streaming network. which was one of the most spectacular lies and PR bullshit things that I think that I've ever read. And like it consumed me for months. I was fascinated.
You were annoying
by this lie because it was such obvious bullshit that somehow a single football game represented a spike in global internet traffic that could be measured, and that was something that NBC should be bragging about. That was probably closer to the truth than this 25 million audio downloads and social media views that her publicist company is insisting she was getting.
The shelf life for that story was probably just those 2 weeks, because like I pulled up the Apple podcast, which I don't use, and I just pulled up the top shows. It's currently at number 6, the Not Gonna Lie podcast. Yeah. Joe Rogan is still at number 2. There's some Kai Dickens podcast that's number 1. I never heard of Kai Dickens, but you can easily write an article about them.
Wife.
Right? They say, oh, they toppled the great Joe Rogan too, and you can do the same thing. I bet you, by the end of 25, probably outside of the top 50, this Kelce podcast, I'm guessing.
Well, whatever. Maybe it's good. Maybe
it's a
good, perfectly entertaining thing.
Yeah, it's just whatever's new.
Right. Being new helps, but also like having a PR firm behind you who's insisting on this framing, who's then shipping it off to the New York Times for this sort of an article. Like that's all this is. Right. This is just this stupid Ouroboros of PR nonsense that's happening here. And I don't like whatever. It doesn't. Obviously, none of it fucking matters. I was just amused by the New York Times laundering PR for the Kelce family in much the same way that supermarket tabloids do. Right? Like it's just that somebody's publicist calls up and gives tips to whatever stupid fake journalist they have working at People or Us magazine. That's the reason why these stories are in, right? Like the paparazzi get told what restaurant Brad Pitt is going to be in because Brad Pitt's got a fucking movie coming out next month, and they want Brad Pitt's pictures in the tabloids again so that people will be excited about Brad Pitt shit, right? Like that's a bad example because I'm old, but like that's how this shit works, right? This is how the sausage is made. And now the New York Times is participating in the sausage making.
I think I mentioned this, but like years ago, the local Fox 5 station would do on Fridays a burgers with like one of the hosts, like burgers with buck is what they call it. And they would go to different burger joints around the city, and then he would give it was always a thumbs up, after he ate the burger, like he enjoyed it. And my brother, who's a producer for that station, was like, this is all not on the up and up, right? The burger places that they pay for the people to go to them, and it's like all, it's all worked out in advance. This is not an honest effort. So all of this stuff is kind of like that.
Lori, what were you saying that was also annoying to me? You're right.
You were annoyed about, maybe it was separate but related, the concept of Travis Kelce not actually helping around. Jason Kelce not around a lot, apparently, and people are surprised about it.
Yeah, there we go. There's a line, here it is. There's a line in this piece in the Times. It says, in the interview, her first since the podcast was announced in November, Miss Kelce attributed the show's resonance to her honesty, like her headline-grabbing admission that her husband does not watch their children. Maybe it's the promise that you're not going to get lied to, she said. So she's talking about what makes her show resonate with a wide audience, and I was amused by this notion that Jason Kelce not helping around the house with the kids and like doing a lot of the domestic responsibilities would be headline grabbing, because like we're talking about. So what is it? What do they say? They have 4 kids?
Yeah, that sounds about
right. How many
right.
Kids?
Probably 3 to 4. Rich people have 3 to 4 kids.
Whatever. They've got children, and he doesn't spend a lot of time doing the babysitting aspect of being a father. And this was apparently a big deal. Like they made a big stink of it out there in the wider world. And like, I know that Jason Kelce is a charming individual to people, right? Like people like him, both of them, I guess.
Like meatheads, well-meaning.
Yeah, sure.
But like woke meatheads.
Yeah.
But like even right, like he's found his spot in the culture, and it's fine and good, and he seems like a good guy, right? Like somebody calls his brother a faggot, and he grabs the phone out of their hands and smashes it on the ground because
somebody calls his brother a faggot for dating Taylor Swift.
Right.
It has to be said.
And you take on that.
Yeah, but do people think that like Jason Kelce and even Kylie Kelce, to whatever extent that she's an awesome mom, I'm sure, I don't doubt that. These are incredibly driven people. They're not driven to take care of their children. They're driven to be rich and famous.
Right.
And if they weren't, they wouldn't be on our televisions all the time. Like what Jason Kelce wants, like I don't know how, does this have to be spelled out for people? What Jason Kelce wants is to spend almost no time with his family, right? that is established by the fact that he's traveling all the time in order to be on television, right? This is a man who made generational wealth, who does not have to work any longer if he doesn't want to, and still provide he and his family and his children's children with money to live on and probably not have to work for the rest of their lives. Would they have to live kind of austere lives, relatively speaking? Like they couldn't spend with great profligacy and be, we're not talking Bill Gates money here. But we are talking about an incredibly comfortable life for you and your progeny at the very least. Yeah, you should be, you want to feel productive, you want to do things, you want to have a purpose and a reason for being on this planet. You don't just want to sip fruity drinks with an umbrella in the top of it, right? With the straw umbrella or what have you. Have a purpose in life, absolutely. But like the reason that Jason Kelce is doing what he's doing, like Tom Brady is getting paid generational money to do the thing that he's doing, but he doesn't need that generational money to call games at Fox. He could be done. Yeah. Instead, he wants to be a part of the conversation. He wants to be the center of attention to some degree or another. Jason Kelce doesn't watch his kids because he wants to be rich and famous, right? This is not complicated. Like, there's only so many people in the world. There's obviously a larger number of people than can achieve this goal. But there's a subset of the population that just wants to be rich and famous. And what Jason Kelce wants to be primarily is not a great dad. Right. Okay? It shouldn't surprise anybody.
Right. Although they probably don't think that they're not a great dad, right? I mean, like, you see all these head coaches, they're like at the office for like 20 hours with their fellow coaches. Like, I don't know how much study you need to do with football, like, but it seems like they're there all the time. They hardly see their kids.
All of it.
Only when they get fired do they realize that they have a family. So, like, yep. But they probably think that I'm providing for my kids, so they probably don't think of themselves as bad parents.
No, bullshit. You're selfish. You're a selfish asshole.
That's true.
And that's fine. That's fine. That's what you're driven to do. We're not going to stop you from having those desires and from wanting what you want, right? There's no fixing that. And maybe, and the majority of them, maybe they are great dads also in the time that they devote to it. But like, to be surprised by the fact that somebody isn't, like, somebody who's in our faces all the time, right? Who, if you just follow them by accident, by virtue of the fact that you're a football fan, it's like, God, we sure do get a lot of Jason Kelce,
and not always at the same place. They're traveling a lot too, right? So to go to different games, so they're never like really around. Yeah, but again, I'm telling you, I bet you 100%, none of these guys. None of these coaches, none of these former players, none of these actual players think that they're bad parents. They think like, what do you mean? I'm doing the thing.
No, they don't think they're bad parents.
Or like, I could be doing more. Or they're like, what do you mean? I'm providing for them. Like, I'm setting them up for the future. What are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah.
I've said before that, like, one of the underplayed stories of what it means to be successful in this country and elsewhere is that it requires a lot of psychotic drive in order to want to do these things, right? Like, I joke about Michael Jordan, hate, rage, win. He's a demonstrably terrible human being to, like, be friends with, right? Yeah. Like, if or to, like, to be his kid, I imagine was quite a trial for Michael Jordan's children, right? And that goes for, like, even the guy that got Luigi'd a couple of weeks ago, the CEO of United Healthcare. Yeah. Almost certainly like a bad dad in ways that matter, right? Because he, in order to become the CEO of a multinational healthcare company that controls billions and billions of dollars every single year, that requires a top 1% of people willing to give up almost everything else in order to pursue this one thing, right? In order to reach the top of anything, you have to be a fucking psychopath. Right. And I firmly believe that, especially in anything that requires hustle above all else, right? So like the hustle mindset, the rise and grind stuff, in order to achieve the top of that, you have to be a literal psychopath.
Who's competing with other literal psychopaths to get to that spot, right? So it's like you're competing with other people who are just like you, and you have to sacrifice time. You can't be dicking around with your kids. Right, that's a waste of time.
And if you think that Kylie Kelce, a high school field hockey coach with multiple children, is devoting, like, are we going to get a stunning headline next year that it turns out that Kylie Kelce has hired help to deal with her fucking kids because, by the way, she hosts a Rogan killing podcast out here as well? Right. Like, you think that she's fucking making lunch for the kids? Right. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Of course she's not doing that any more than Jason is. Anyway, that's what got me hot about reading the Kylie Kelce New York Times piece a couple of weeks ago. Let's now roll the dice. Man, we had a lot of fun last week in the Billboard Hot 100 game. I had even more fun editing it with all of that Linkin Park stuff.
Andrew hated it.
We got some feedback from a listener of the show. Andrew suggested that we were wrong, that it was the worst cast iron brains segment in quite some time.
He said bad cast iron take.
What did he say here? Let's pull it up. Andrew says, Linkin Park rocks. Horrible cast iron take. To which I said, no, Linkin Park definitely sucks. I know because I listened to a bunch recently, which I did in the editing of last week's podcast, which was a great deal of fun. I don't think we're going to have nearly that much fun tonight. Don't be ridiculous. That was a one-off. But we will nonetheless attempt to prove the degradation of the culture by comparing a song from this week's Billboard Hot 100 chart with a song from the Billboard Hot 100 in a year of our youth, both things determined by a roll of the dice. And we have landed at spot number 9 on the
10.
chart.
Look at that.
Or forgive me, no.
Year number 9?
Year number 9 of our game. Spot number 10.
Oh, okay.
On the chart.
Look at that.
Not too bad. So we'll be going to 1991 and spot number 10 on the chart.
What's 1991? That's like MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice.
MC Hammer, yep.
A lot of bad R&B, no doubt.
Like Celine Dion early.
Yeah, it won't be great. But number 9 this week, I worry we're just going to hit a Christmas song, which will really screw things up.
Number 10, you mean, right?
Oh, well.
Sorry, number 10, you're right. You're number 9, spot number 10. And we do have Underneath the Tree by Kelly Clarkson, which I don't know. I don't know how we can possibly play the game because this is, by definition, a classic song.
How classic is it?
I don't know, but it's a Christmas song. Kelly Clarkson's ongoing relative fame and
2013
place in the culture is quite something. I see her advertisements for her daily talk show. She has a like Ellen. Ellen doesn't do it anymore, but she has like a daytime talk interview show.
I stumbled on her show a couple times because I think I'm watching something else, and then it ends.
Because you recorded it,
and then that show starts. But she makes a habit of like the beginning of each episode, she does a song. She like sings something like, and it seems like
she's a singer.
Every episode she opened with it. Like, what is going on? This gimmick has got to run out at some point.
She's a singer.
That's too much Kelly Clarkson.
That is a lot.
You don't have to watch any of it.
And I'm afraid that we are on the other side of Christmas, and so I have much less patience for Christmas songs now than I did just a few days ago. So that's enough from Kelly Clarkson. This has ruined the game. That's what you've done Kelly Clarkson and Billboard is you've ruined the game. You've made it completely impossible. Let's now go to the Billboard Hot 100 for the end of December 1991. All right, the week of December 29th through the end of that week of January 4th, we have at the top of the charts, Black or White by Michael Jackson.
Oh, amazing.
A thoroughly strange song that only gets stranger if you watch the full video, which is like fucking 10 or 15 minutes long, and the last 5 minutes of which just involve Michael Jackson going ham on some parked cars.
Oh, that's
late
right.
At night.
Yes.
It's a very strange decision that was made by Michael at that point, at a time of lots of strange decisions being made by Michael, to be fair. Boys to Men, Color Me Bad. There's Mariah in the top 10 as usual. Michael Bolton, number 7.
Oh, we just missed MC Hammer,
there's
too.
MC.
Too Legit to Quit at number 8. Instead, we have Blowing Kisses in the Wind by Paula Abdul. Sandwiched, Paula Abdul sandwich. You know, Paula is the meat. The bread is MC Hammer. He'd be a pumpernickel, I suppose.
No.
But then Marky Mark is the white bread on the other side of that Paula Abdul sandwich with a song called Wild Side.
Oof. 1.9 million in 15 years.
Only fewer than 2 million views.
Wow.
For a top 10 song. Wow.
I wonder if it's going to be somebody like who's here in 2024.
So tell, baby, tell your true heart. Say what you say when you're all alone. I'm trying to feel you. See if I see I'm feeling alone. And all I want is to get through. So maybe you'll see that the way you're leaving me, you won't do. It's like I'm blowing kisses in the wind, giving you love that you haven't been given. I cross my heart and hope to die. I'm only wishing you would love me like that. Blowing kisses in the wind, waiting for you. It's like blowing kisses. So please, baby, please.
I don't believe that she liked this as she was recording it. It was really bad.
These are top 10 songs.
You should roll the dice again.
Should I roll the dice again? It's not a bad option.
Like this, because the first one doesn't count because it's Christmas. I mean,
All right, let's go fast. Year 25, spot number 44.
it's more scientific.
All right, song is called Stargazing by Miles Smith.
Time stood still, just like a photograph. You made me feel like this will last forever. Looking in your eyes, I see my whole life. Oh, they say you know it when you know it, and I know. Oh, promise that you hold me close, don't let me go. Take my heart, don't break it. Love me to my bones. All this time I've wasted. You were right there all along. You and I stargazing, intertwining songs. We were never strangers. You were right there all along. I lose my mind when I'm around
I
you.
heard this song at work today, and I thought how much I hate it.
What's the band that I can never remember? It's like bearded dudes on stage with lots of guitar and guitar.
Mumford & Sons.
Mumford & Sons. Why in 2024 is the cool thing to do Mumford & Sons, but as a one black guy?
It's not necessarily the cool thing. It's just what's happening.
That sounds exactly like a Mumford & Sons
The
song.
Lumineers.
What a nightmare. Oh, man. 2007, I think, right?
Yep.
Is that what I said?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
One more try here. The end of December 2007. Number 1 this week was Low.
Nice.
Flo Rida featuring T-Pain.
Nice.
Which also makes an appearance in last week's episode if you go back and listen to it. So I won't play it again here probably. Although, why not?
Shoulda had them apple bottom jean boots with the fur. The whole club was looking at her. She hit the floor. Next thing you know, shoulda got low. Them baggy sweatpants.
There's like 7-9 seconds of that song.
It's
like, how can you
so
deny that
good.
fucking song? What a wonderful 9 or 10 seconds. Scroll to number 44. The song is called Stay. The band is Sugarland.
Oh.
We just missed a Jay Timberlake duet with Beyonce and Rockstar by Nickelback, which I think the first time I heard it, I thought was a joke.
You're going to have to play it because I don't... Which one is that one?
I'll get there after we play Stay by Sugarland.
Is that the one where they had all the
gonna be the same
celebrities
song.
featuring in the video?
Abe, you don't know a lot about what's going to happen in 2024, but God damn it, you know your Nickelback.
Well, I don't know much about bands. I'm the music man.
I've been sitting here staring at the clock on the wall.
Fuck, man.
And I've been laying here praying she won't call. It's just another call from home. And you get it and be gone, and I'll be crying.
This is your fault, Lori.
Yeah.
Lori said, let's roll the dice again.
And I'll be
got
begging
very
you,
pretty hair.
baby, beg you not to leave. But I'll be left here waiting with my heart on my sleeve. Oh, for the next time we'll be here. Seems like a million years, and I think I'm dying. What do I have to do to make you see? She can't love you like me. Why don't you stay? I'm down on my knees. I'm so tired of being lonely. Don't I give you what you need when she calls you to go? There is one thing you should know. We don't have to live this way. Baby, why don't you stay?
The sound of this woman's voice, like literally the sound that the voice makes and the choices that she makes with her vowels make me mad.
So I disagree on the first thing. I think her voice is great, but the accent is doing horrible things to it.
I mean, I'm on the verge of voting for that solo black male artist
Go
who's just
ahead.
doing Mumford & Sons. But then I read the comments.
36,000 of them, by the way. I mean, you didn't read all of them, but I can't believe that many people have commented on this song.
First comment. Well, let me start off by saying, as an African-American woman, a lot of people don't think we like country music, but we love country music. This song is so touching to see her cry. Tears actually brought my knees in tears because as a woman, I can relate to this on both ends of the coin. Haven't always been proud of my actions, but this song has made me stronger. Still listening to this song in 2024. I read that as it was punctuated, which is to say, sans punctuation entirely. The next one Wife of 19 years walked out on me and our 5 kids last July. We spent months homeless or in a shelter. After countless 60-hour work weeks, I made us a home again. Now, after all our struggle and after she's had her fun, she wants back in. Brief aside, 5 kids. Sounds like she had some fun at some point along the way as well. Or maybe not. Maybe he's given the game away there a little bit.
Yep. The fun to labor ratio is not promising, right? I mean,
that's right. The fun to labor ratio is so spectacularly well stated, Abe. It hurts, but after careful consideration, I have advised her to stay gone, stay away. Sad, but kind of happy at the same time. God, this song reminds so much of all the times I begged her to love me. In the end, it was for the best. Great song.
That's remarkable. 5 kids, 60 hours of work. I mean, the Kelces do it with help. This guy did it all his own. Kudos. Whatever his name is.
That is at Rome Empire 7, 4 years ago. And sorry, I didn't credit properly the first comment, which was at Desiree A. Harris 6319 earlier in 2024.
Man, this is a very active comment section. Holy shit, look at these replies.
I have no choice but to give it to this song. It is so wildly popular, even in 2024, lo these many years later, that I don't feel the need to vote for.
I think that that song could grow on a person.
This song?
Yes.
Boy, I don't know. I
mean, if you ignore her accent and just listen to her voice, it's a very good voice.
Fine, but that accent is just... It's an ice pick straight to the brain for me. I can't handle it.
They thought so highly of a song that no Pharrell's official video, by the way. This is like, there's no like story.
Well, there's more music that was going to happen, but we stopped listening to the song.
We stopped because I didn't want to die. I was afraid I was going to die because of brain damage, because of her accent. Abe, do you have a vote here?
Yeah, the Stay song is fine.
Lori?
I don't need to.
Lori does not need to.
But yeah, she was fine. Real quick with this one. I don't want to listen to more than a couple seconds.
I'm through with standing in line. The clubs I'll never get.
It's stop it. No,
bottom of the ninth, and I'm never gonna win this. Life hasn't turned out quite the way I want it to be.
Oh, I hate it.
Tell me what you want. I want a brand new house on an episode of Cribs and a bathroom I can play baseball in, and a king size tub big enough for 10 plus me. So what you need? I'll need a credit card that's got no limit and a big black chair with a bedroom in it. Gonna join the Mile High Club at 37,000 feet. Been there, done that. I want a new tour bus full of old guitars. Mine star on Hollywood Boulevard. Somewhere between Cher and James Dean is fine for me. So how you gonna do it?
You chose this, Lori.
I said I wanted a couple seconds to remind me how I really am.
Cause we all just wanna be big rock stars and living in the top bosses, driving 15 cars. The girls come easy and the come cheap. Well, I'll stay skinny.
It's the Dicks.
It sounds like Dicks.
I wrote an essay some years ago called Eat My Shorts, I think is what I called it, or something like that. There was the point of the essay was a commentary on the aggressive shittiness of much of American culture, like the aggressive, willful stupidity of much of American culture. And this song by Nickelback is in direct conversation with that, which is like what we most want, what does the best in this country consistently. And you can look at like light beer commercials are a very good example of it also, which is it's going to be aggressively stupid and like purposefully bad. And this is how we talk to multiple audiences at the same time, right? Where The Simpsons, and the reason that it was about Eat My Shorts, is because The Simpsons, at the same time that it was like this biting satire and this very, very smart show written by very, very smart people, it also had a stupid little 9-year-old mascot who skateboarded around and said, "Eat my shorts," right? Like, he did a very stupid thing that satisfied the very dumb part of your brain that could get the dumbest person in the audience to laugh out loud, right? Like, the "eat my shorts" stuff was just for the dummies to laugh at and laugh about, at the same time that the show is doing incisive social political commentary about the state of the culture. It has it both ways. An aggressively stupid Miller Lite commercial both has the appeal to the target demo, which is the dumb fucking people in the audience, but also the people who say, "Oh, they're doing the dumb thing here on purpose, and I'm supposed to be laughing at rather than with whatever is happening on the screen here." That's what that is the exact little niche that Nickelback is filling here as well, right? This is aggressively stupid, and you can enjoy it on this visceral level of it being so dumb.
I can't enjoy it.
Well, no, you can't. But many millions of people can. And there's this. I can't say that it's purely American, but it feels...
Well, they're Canadian.
It feels distinctly American to me to try to walk this line between stupid and knowingly stupid. And the entire Trump phenomenon, the reason that we've endured the trumpeting for the last decade is how it also walks, that it goes down the train tracks at 1,000 miles an hour and can be sort of enjoyed, perversely so, by everyone watching, right? It speaks and allows us to comment on it in a way that only truly willfully stupid content can.
I wonder if part of the appeal is that it's like you don't think you're better than me, like you're just being stupid, just like I want to be stupid sometimes, and it's kind of like endearing to some people that it's that way. Like, 'cause it's not like people are, well, I was going to say people aren't dumb by choice, but some people do indulge in their dumbness more so than they otherwise should. But some people, they like catchphrases. Did I do that with Urkel or eat my shorts or whatever it is? People get a kick out of that sort of thing. What are you going to do?
Right. I've also Googled the Kid Rock song "Don't Tell Me How to Live" for another example of something that is just spectacularly, willfully stupid. This is like more aggressively so, but also involves like my favorite 3 seconds in the history of music.
Very nearly 9:30, and we have a whole other podcast to do.
I'm the last of a few, still screaming, "Fuck you!" Ain't nobody gonna tell me how to live. Ain't nobody gonna tell me how to live.
That guy.
It's Bob's favorite thing to
points
send.
at the camera and then says, "Ain't nobody gonna tell me how to live." I don't use it nearly enough, but I clipped that as a video, and I keep it in my I like to use it occasionally in the family group chat as a reply.
Oh, okay.
To people.
Someone saying like, "Wear sunscreen."
Oh, it's a good use of that.
You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com for more from us. The opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, TETRAMER music.com for more from Mark. Last thing that I'll say here before we ask Abe how went the movies this past week is I did a little bit of digging, reminiscing about our 2024, and we put out 50 official Cast Iron Brains episodes this year, which is, I believe, a new record. We were very consistent putting out near weekly shows this year. We put out a total of 146 hours of content across our 3 or 4 different titles. We average about 2 hours per episode here on Cast Iron Brains. And then, of course, we introduced Cast Iron Balls this year as well. Something like 85 different bits of audio went into your podcast feed if you were a subscriber to Cast Iron Brains this year, including, of course, my short-lived but still fun morning press that I did for the first few months of the year.
What was the over-under on that in terms of how many months?
I don't know. It was. I feel bad that it didn't continue, but it was sucking up like my entire day, and it wasn't really feasible any longer. And I put a one-off episode of The Narcissist Archivist out there in the feed also, I believe, at one point. But yeah, 50 episodes of the mainline podcast, another 30 and a half, 35, 36 other things in your feed. If you are a fan of the stuff that we do here, 2024 was the best year so far in terms of both quantity and quality as far as I'm concerned. And I appreciate my wife indulging what verges on an obsession of mine, and also greatly appreciate the fact that I've got my good friend and co-host and someone I cannot imagine another person that I would like to or would be willing to do this silliness with me on a week-to-week basis. And as 2024 comes to its natural conclusion, I just wanted to express appreciation for both of you and, of course, for everyone else who chooses to listen to us. And you should do us a favor and share it with a friend if you get a kick out of what we do here. Abe, anything to add to my rundown of all of that fucking content that we put out this year? Far surpassing, you allegedly participate in some other podcast called The Biffler.
I think we're at 22 episodes. I don't know if you guys put out even 10 episodes this year, something along those lines. 22 was, I think, the count. Just looking at end of year. But yeah, not nearly as many as, 80 plus here? To be fair, when you've got fucking 4.5 hour long goddamn podcast episodes, I guess you don't have to put them out quite as often. That's true. Abe, you recorded 4.5 hours of podcast this week. Surely that prevented you from making it to the movies. No, I did go see the movies. I went to the movies.
Saw movies.
I watched the A Complete Unknown, the Timothée Chalamet Bob Dylan movie.
My God, you said it correctly. You said Chalamet instead of Chalamet.
I was just thinking in my head. I Googled it. I was like, Chalamet or Chalamet? It's one of those. I can't get it right. I'm sure I'll get it wrong in the future if I say it. Chalamet the God, right? Isn't that... Isn't it Charlemagne? Something like that. Whatever. Oh, goddamn. Yeah, I screwed it up. So, the... overall, decent movie. I'm realizing, these musical biopics, they kind of hit the same beats. It's kind of like that Walk Hard made fun of it a little bit, but right. They still do it. This is like a better version of that Bob Marley musical biopic that I saw a couple of years ago, or maybe it was a year ago. If you like Bob Dylan's music, you're going to like this movie because there's a lot of it. Apparently, there was some sort of a Newport folk festival thing that this whole movie centered around, where like he wanted to play like an electric guitar set, and they're like, no. Well, that's not how we do things here. And there's like a lot of conflict around that. Like, what do you mean? You can't do that? And he's like, fuck you, I'll do what I want. I'm counter to that. There was a lot of that.
What did he say? No one's going to tell him how to live?
Yeah. Yeah, he was like the original Kid Rock, yes.
Oh, fuck, now we don't even need to go see the movie. The tagline on the poster is just the original Kid Rock, and we're all set.
But again, I don't have much to say other than it's fine. It's like a decent movie. I've seen them. You've seen them one, you've seen them all. Like, I suspect there's gonna be a war.
Was Chalamet the God any good?
He was good. I mean, if Bob, I don't know much about Bob Dylan outside of his music, but
I don't know much about bands.
You just watched a whole movie about him.
I was like, is Bob Dylan supposed to be like a knowing prick? Like, because that's how he was kind of portrayed.
Yeah, I think that's his thing.
Yeah, because he was very like dismissive of other people. Like, he would like use women up, and he like. People are trying to help him, and he was like, fuck it, I'll just
We just had this conversation about highly successful people.
Yeah.
they're shitty.
Yeah. Well, he was both. And I think a lot of movies, what was it, that Bohemian Rhapsody won like Oscar, like Walk the Line.
Yeah, that was not worthy.
There were a lot of movies that would win. So I'm not saying Best Picture, but I'm sure that Chalamet is going to win or going to be nominated for Best Actor, right? Because that's how it usually goes. And so, like, I suspect he'll be nominated. He'll be like a contender for it.
I want to pin you down on something here. Pop quiz, hot shot. When did Bob Marley One Love movie come out? You said a couple of years ago.
It could be 2022. It could be 2020. I know Jimmy Carter was still alive, but
was it this summer? Was it this most recent summer?
I'm thinking it was something in like February. I don't know why I'm thinking February.
I think it was summer,
but I don't know when.
Of which year?
If I had to say a year, I would say 23. Let's say 2023.
It was Valentine's Day of this year.
Get out of here. I just knew it was like, I remember just going there and it was cold. I was like, fucking bullshit. I remember that. I just don't remember the year. I remember it was cold.
All right. Anything else besides the
on
Bob
the
Dylan movie?
Netflix front? I sat and watched the 3-part Aaron Rodgers documentary.
Oh, man. We did not yet.
Oh, man.
How was it?
He is, speaking of annoying pricks, like he thinks so highly of himself. Like the whole time during this documentary, he's like trying to prove how smart he is. Like there was like this moment like on a plane, and he's like trying to impress somebody that's flying with him about like how he can do math. Like, I'm very good at like math, and it's like, dude, you're like fucking almost 40. Like, why are you trying to show people how smart you are? It seems like he needs people to know. Football's not all
like
I do.
Like a 7-year-old quizzing you on your like your times tables.
Yeah,
or whatever?
It was something similar. I was like, I almost kind of felt bad for him by like the second episode. I was like, man, this guy's like really not in a good headspace. Like he's constantly like doing all these stupid drugs. And I think I'm right about the drug thing. He needs to do that ego death thing every like 90 minutes. Like he just needs to be on a very constant ego death trip because as soon as he's done with it, he got some former NFL players to come to his little ayahuasca thing, and they seem to be like well-adjusted people. But for him, he just reverts back to the way he was before. Like it doesn't take for whatever reason, and it was like that the whole time, just the whole way. Like how other people they tell me I suck.
I don't think you can fix narcissism with a little bit of psychoactive drugs.
No,
like,
it probably
it's just
makes it worse.
Yeah, you need something else. I think this helps other people because it seems like it does help some people. But whatever Rodgers has,
MDMA though, like the empathy thing of MDMA, that might fix him.
I don't know.
Yeah, but he's just very like hard to kind of be like. It's an interesting. I mean, you get tired of Aaron Rodgers pretty quickly, but like if you just kind of watch him, just like this guy's like he's like always like trying to like figure something out. He doesn't seem like he's happy. Like he's always trying to figure out some new thing. Like he's like he grew up like in one kind of way, like the Christian way, and he's like trying to seek some other like weirdo Eastern philosophy schemes, and he's still at it, I guess.
Sometimes you just have to stop looking for answers.
Yeah.
I think might actually be the secret sometimes. Lori, what did we watch?
Oh, Christmas stuff.
Just Christmas stuff?
Home Alone, and what did we watch on Christmas Eve?
We watched Scrooged. We watched some of the old South Park
what did we watch with the kids?
Specials. We watched Home Alone with the kids.
I don't know.
We watched a couple of those old. There's a Netflix series called The Movies That Made Us, and we watched the Home Alone one of that with the kids. Kids kind of see the behind the scenes stuff.
Nice. Batman.
And then we watched Batman, the 1989 Tim Burton, Michael Keaton Batman, and it's good. It's great. Trying to convince the kids that like some superhero movies are actually great before they fall into the Marvel Cinematic Universe entirely.
Calvin is suddenly like, okay, what's next in Marvel?
Yeah,
like,
we gotta make our way through the first phase of the MCU. It's like,
did that start with Iron Man 1? Is that
Yeah, so he's seen Iron Man 1. He's seen the first Captain America movie. There's a couple others that we need to show him before.
Or not.
You can really fully grok.
I think that you can just watch the Avengers at any time because it's just a 2-hour-long episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Sure. Thor is a good one, though. Like, the first Thor movie is actually pretty good, just in terms of it being like a fish-out-of-water comedy. So it's perfectly entertaining.
And he throws the coffee cup on the floor. It's funny.
But, yeah, I want them to see that there's a difference between the Marvel schlock and, like, actually good.
He's going to say that the difference is that the Marvel stuff is great.
Probably. That would be
Because he's 12.
Yeah.
It is nearly 10 o'clock.
I know. We went way longer than I anticipated.
It's because I didn't say anything.
I know. Overall,
so
bad
that's
year
why
for
I
movies,
do that.
Right?
Yeah, very bad year for movies. But, Avatar's... James Cameron's back next year, so there's that.
But as expected, this was the writer's strike. The remnants of the writer's strike was 2020.
But all the big movies, I mean, that's how it usually goes. They're just a bunch of just repeat, like whatever for, or, like Captain America, new Captain America, or just like some random new thing. So we'll see.
What was the single best movie you saw this year?
What did I say? I forget already. I did like a top 5 on the other podcast, but like I forgot what it was.
Must have been a good one.
It was something good.
Abe's just trying to plug his other podcast. No, you got to listen to the other one to find out.
It is of all of the basically it was Inside Out 2 and Zone of Interest are the two movies that I like.
Nice.
Which are not the same type of movie. One is like a kid movie.
I cannot imagine two more different movies. I wouldn't think. I don't even remember us talking about Inside Out 2. But
I don't think that we did, but we don't have time now.
All right, yeah. All right, Abe, you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
Anyway, what have I been doing? I've been reading Philip K. Dick stuff. I've been listening... What have I been listening to? I've been listening to a Dostoevsky book called The Possessed. On my Audible app. Have you read or listened or otherwise interacted with any of the classic Russian literature, Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or anything like that?
Actually, the last few years, all I've done is just read non-fiction. Like this year, I'm going to end up with one shy of 30 books. Like the first 2 months.
That's right. You keep track of such things. Do you have a run, like total movies and total books read this year?
Yeah, so it's like 56 movies and 29
That's a come down,
books.
isn't it?
It was like 72. But then I set out to do 72. So I was like, and I hit it. And after that, I was like, whatever, doesn't matter. And this year, 29 books. But the last 2 months, I've been in a book a week pace. So I'm gonna try. What was Shohei Ohtani's whatever number, 52? He did something like that. So I'm going to do 52 books, 52 movies in 25.
Nice. Will you read any fiction, or
maybe? But like right now, I mean,
again?
I'm finishing up this Going Clear book, the Scientology book, which is a hoot.
Nice.
I watched a documentary years ago about it, but the book is much better. And I'll try to work in some fiction, but in order to keep up my pace, it may not be like 600 pages of Russian bullshit. So I may try to just read regular 300-400 page books instead.
Dostoevsky, I've read Anna Karenina recently. I read one of the other ones also. And now, I think I started The Idiot, but couldn't quite get into it. And now I'm reading The Possessed. You say 600 pages, and you're not wrong. They're very long books. But like half of them are just Russian names, and he always says like it's fucking 40 fucking syllables per name, and they never just say Steve, right? And he's always referring to him as Stepanovich. Yeah. It's like, we don't need all three of this fucker's names. Just put Steve, and we'll know who you're talking about.
Imagine what other editing could be done potentially to make it shorter and better.
I feel bad for the people reading these things because they have to keep saying this fucking name over and over again. Anyway, Dostoevsky's very good. That seems like a silly thing to say.
Hey, good. Do you listen to any of his like the audiobooks, or you read the books?
No, I'm listening to the audiobooks.
So I'm thinking maybe I'll work in because I do my walks now. At least during the winter months. Yeah. Like I could try to listen.
Yeah, you should. And it. I guess if you're also committed to listening to albums as you have been.
Well, right now what I'm doing is I'm going year by year of old This American Life. I'm like halfway through 1999. Good times.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.